This week on Diabetes Connections, headline from People magazine. Young couple with diabetes meet online from 3,000 miles away. You might have seen it. It's a great story, but I wanted to go more in depth because I think it speaks to the larger diabetes community, to issues of connection, positive depictions of type 1 in media, and the idea that Googling diabetes doesn't have to bring up depressing stories or outdated medical advice. I am talking to Elise and Zach about the rest of their story. This podcast is not intended as medical advice. If you have those kinds of questions, please contact your healthcare provider. Welcome to another week of Diabetes Connections. You know we aim to educate and inspire about diabetes with a focus on people who use insulin. I'm your host, Stacey Sims, and I'm looking forward to this weekend already. I'm going to meet a whole bunch of new people. I'm flying up to New Jersey for the New Jersey Metro and Rockland County Breakthrough T1D Summit there. As you're listening, I think there's still time to register, so I will put a link in the show notes. The summit starts at 8 in the morning, and then after the summit itself is done, they're doing a walk kickoff. I'm sticking around for that. And I'm really excited because I am debuting a new presentation. It's called 18 Years of T1D, Lessons, Laughter, and Life Along the Way. Because Benny, my son, was diagnosed more than 18 years ago. Yeah, he was about to turn 2 when he was diagnosed with type 1, and now he is 20. Oh my goodness. So this presentation is a look back on the technology we've used all those years, how he's doing now, how we got there. Because the number one question I get is, how did you make him so independent? So we're going to address that. And we're going to talk, of course, about all the mistakes we made along the way and, kind of check in and let you all know how we're doing now. So I really hope to see you there. I'm very excited about that. I'm also sneaking in some personal time. My college roommate doesn't live too far away, so we're going to see each other. And then I'm going to spend a little time with my sister, who's also up in that area. So I'm always excited to go to any diabetes event, but it's always a little more fun when you can also get together with friends and family. So as I said in that opening tease, this story was all over my news feeds, and it was sent to me by my non-diabetes friends as well. And maybe that happened to you. People magazine reports, quote, a young couple 3,000 miles apart found love with each other after connecting on social media over their shared type 1 diabetes diagnosis. And they were talking about Zach and Elise. Now, the story said they were both Omnipod users, so I reached out to Insulet and they helped me set up this interview. And then I was surprised when Elise and Zach got on the line and they were physically together. They were in the same space. So you're going to kind of hear that surprise in my voice when we start. Also, maybe this is the mom in me, but I felt a little weird about talking about this relationship with these two young adults. I mean, when you're dating, you don't need any more outside pressure, right? So Zach and Elise, please know we are very excited you're sharing your story, and the diabetes community is rooting for you, but truly, no pressure. And having said that, the People magazine article may be the only time this year somebody without diabetes encounters a story about type 1. And we just did an episode about stigma, right? So this is the kind of thing that can really go a long way in fighting that. And I don't have to tell you as you listen, it can be really powerful to encounter this kind of story when you're a caregiver of a younger child and you're worried about the future. Just seeing two happy, healthy, young adults. I forget the relationship, right? I mean, just to see these two sharing their story is helpful in ways that are really hard to measure. So kudos to Zach and to Elise for putting it all out there. And our conversation is right after this. I'm so excited that the Dexcom G7 is here. I know you probably have a lot of questions about insurance. You're not alone. Dexcom understands how complicated this can seem, and they've made it as simple as possible. Dexcom is the #1 covered CGM brand. You can visit the Dexcom Savings Center for a free benefits check to see what coverage options are available to you. Powerful and simple, Dexcom G7 is proven to lower A1C and help you spend more time in range. Learn more, go to diabetes-connections.com and click on the Dexcom logo. Zach and Elise, welcome to Diabetes Connections. Thanks so much for making the time to do this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. Super excited.
This is so cool to talk to you both together. I know that you're not always together. Why don't we just kind of set the stage? Zach, where do you live?
I live in Los Angeles right now.
And Elise, how about you?
Yeah, I'm in Boston right now.
So. Not too close.
Oh, yeah, not really.
I'm glad, like I said, I'm glad I caught you together. I want to talk about your diabetes stories and how you met. But first, What's it been like the last couple of weeks? I have seen your story everywhere. Were you surprised at how much attention it got? And Elise, let me start with you.
Definitely. It's been very, very uplifting. I feel like the response has been so positive just from the diabetes community and then also just kind of people in my life that maybe I don't like talk to every day. Just to be able to share Zach and our relationship a little bit has been really special.
Yeah, me as well. It's just kind of unbelievable. It's like People magazine of all magazines. It was like it was funny at first, but yeah, same thing with me. It's just been nice to hear from close friends and family and people that I haven't connected with in a while that are like supporting, and then also the diabetes community as well. Like
Yeah.
Elise has helped me a lot, like tap into just the diabetic community in general. So
Yeah, and there was a lot of sweet comments too, kind of on the post, just saying like, "Oh, can't wait to show my son or daughter this who live with type 1," and people also sharing their stories of there was a few people that had met at like diabetes camp and have been together ever since. So it's been really cool to share our story and hear other people's as well.
That's great. Let's back up a little bit. If people are not familiar, even if they are, we can go a little bit more in depth than
Yeah,
the article did. At least, would you mind sharing your diagnosis story and
yeah.
how long you've lived with type 1, that kind of thing?
So I was 10, about to be 11 years old, and I was diagnosed in March. So I had been feeling just really crappy for months. I remember just feeling super tired all the time, just kind of the typical symptoms, excessive thirst, frequent urination, extreme fatigue. It was really brutal. I had lost about 20 pounds. I was in fifth
Wow.
grade. So my parents noticed, but I was it was winter, so wearing, like, super baggy clothes, and, my dad, like, gave me a hug, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, like, what's wrong? Like, let's." I was super sad, so he was like, "Okay, let's go to the movies." Of course, he gets me, like, and all the candy that I wanted, huge slushie, and I was in the bathroom for, like, the 4th time during opening credits, just, like, with that frequent urination. And while I was in the bathroom, an ad came up for I think March is, like, Diabetes Awareness Month. So, an ad came up saying, "If you're experiencing frequent urination, excessive thirst, unexplained weight loss, like, you might have type 1 diabetes or you might
That's
live with type 1 diabetes."
amazing.
Yeah. So, my dad saw that, called my mom. She said, "We need to go to the hospital right now." And yeah, that was kind of my diagnosis story. I was in the ICU for about 3 days, just kind of getting everything back on track, and yeah.
Do you remember the movie?
I don't, I wish that I did, I wish that I did. I remember, like, everything from that day but the movie, honestly.
That's all right. It's not important at all, but it's
Yeah,
amazing that a PSA came on
like,
that alerted your
crazy.
family.
Mhm.
Zach, you were a little bit younger, right?
yes, so I was 5 years old, about to turn 6. Yeah, it was kind of the same symptoms. I don't remember it as well, of course, since I was so young, but I know I was urinating a lot, and I remember my mom saying I was like wetting my bed,
Mm.
which, I was already potty trained at that time, obviously.
Isn't
And
it great to come on a podcast and talk about all the pee? Like,
yeah,
it's like only
exactly.
here, right?
Only here.
Exactly.
Safe space.
But my dad is type 1 diabetic, and he was diagnosed at the age of 30, so really late. So we were able to kind of catch on pretty quickly, luckily, and he just, checked my blood glucose with his glucometer, and then as soon as my blood sugar was really high, we just went down to the hospital, and yeah, so don't remember much. I remember being in the hospital, but it's kind of just like classic
Yeah.
diagnosis.
At least with you, I mean, being a little bit older, I mean, 11, almost 11 is still pretty young.
Mm,
But was it difficult? That's an age at which you're starting to be more independent. You're really kind of becoming your own person.
yeah.
Do you remember what the transition was like for you?
Absolutely. It's something I've kind of talked about a few times, and I feel like at any age that you're diagnosed, each age comes with its own sort of like challenges. And for me personally, I was going into middle school and just kind of like puberty was starting to happen, which is already like super awkward and just kind of had that added element of being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. It was definitely difficult for me to transition and sort of just kind of start living with it. It was tough. It was something I resented for a little bit, for sure.
Yeah. To follow up on that, because parents who are listening, are going to want me to ask. Well,
Yeah.
if you resented it, well, then how did you get over it? What did you do? Like, what made it better? And I'm not sure that I don't want to put words in your mouth just from our family's experience. Like, let's give it a big range. 11 to 17 is tough for a lot of things, not just diabetes. But what did help you?
I'd say off the bat, the first thing that helped me, I think it was my first year of diagnosis. So I was diagnosed in March, and that October, I participated in the JDRF, which is now transitioned into Breakthrough T1D. I did their type 1 walk, and that was the first time I was like surrounded by just a ton of other type 1 diabetics, and I finally got that like sense of community and just that feeling of not being alone in this struggle, So I think that was a big, like, pivotal moment for me, and I kind of shied away from it for a little bit after that. Just I did it for a few years in a row, and then just kind of as years went by, just becoming more involved in the community and just making my Instagram page as well and connecting with other people living with it has been huge because it's really easy to feel alone in it, but to know that there's so many other people like that, like going through the same things you are is really beneficial.
Zach, I'm curious, I see you nodding, but your dad lives with type 1. So,
Yeah.
and not to say a 5-year-old has a lot in common with their dad, right? It's
Yeah.
different experiences. Did you also feel alone as a kid?
So my dad was always like very dialed with his diabetes, he was like always on top of it. So it felt good to have his support in that sense because he knew what I was going through, But as a kid, I felt a lot of the same feelings as Elise, as like getting older and hitting like 10 years old and whatnot. I also did the JDRF walk when I was first diagnosed. So grew up in a really small town, so I had, like, a couple people that I knew with diabetes, but I did feel alone through, my early teenage years, and I think it just over time, it was something that I became proud of, and even, like, to this day, I'm becoming more and more proud of it, but I would say my dad helped me with that a lot because he always instilled that it was a blessing to have it because we gotta take extra care of our health, make sure we exercise, watch our diet. Like there's a lot of positives to having diabetes that if we didn't have it, maybe we wouldn't be as cognizant of it. So yeah, I don't know. It was kind of just like the classic early teen years and being
Yeah.
insecure about it and
Yeah.
especially, what it looks like on my arm or whatever at the water park or whatever it may be. So definitely had a great support system around me that I'm lucky to have. So
That's awesome. All right, let's cut to the chase. How did you meet? Elise, why don't you start telling the story?
Yeah. So it was probably a few months after I had started my little T1D with Elise Instagram page. And Omnipod on their social media does just amazing posts. They just kind of showcase everyday people wearing their pod, just doing everyday activities. And it's just really cool to see that. And I had posted a photo wearing my Omnipod and tagged them, and they had reposted it on their Instagram page, and it kind of, like, reached a lot of people, I guess I would say. He was one of them, and, yeah, I got a DM a few days later on my, like, main account, and he slid in the DMs with the classic line, "I think you're my type." Yeah,
Ah,
very witty. It was good, I liked it.
Zach, you can take it from there. What were you thinking?
I
As much as you want to share, I don't want to get too
yeah.
personal.
No, totally, like, we love or at least I love sharing this part, but, I don't know, it's wild because a couple weeks prior, I had put T1D in my Instagram bio, and it was just in case I connected with other type 1 diabetics. They knew that I was also type 1, so it was just some inkling to put it in my bio, and then, yeah, I started following Omnipod a couple weeks before that too, and saw the post of Elise, and I just had this feeling to reach out because I clicked on her diabetes account, right? And it's like, oh, this girl she seems really pretty, but she seems like stylish too, and she seems around my age. Like her profile pic. I was like, no, she seems intriguing. So so yeah, then I followed her main account, which is not connected to her diabetes account. And she followed me back because I had the T1D in my bio. And Had to wait a couple days, didn't want to seem too, thirsty or anything. And then I got to shout out my sister here. She was really helping me like think of an opening line. Like had to be smooth, but careful and like, not too like weird or anything. So yeah, just sent I think you're my type. And then she got back to me the same night. And so the conversation started from there and we hit it off. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's great.
that's the origin.
I am curious before we talk a little bit more about, how you met in your story. You both, when you're talking about social media,
Mhm.
it's tough to put stuff out there because there's a lot of negative. I mean,
Sure.
in our
Yeah.
last episode, we were talking about bias and diabetes stigma. And I'm
Mm.
sure not every comment you get is complimentary. Even some curious comments can be negative. I get a lot of those myself.
Totally.
So at least let me ask you, like starting a diabetes page,
Mhm.
were you nervous about that? Did you ever get pushback? Right back to our conversation. But first, Diabetes Connections is brought to you by Omnipod. For many of you, as you listen, this is going to sound like a weird question. Why do you use the insulin pump you've got on right now? There's a really good chance that you went on that pump 15 or 20 years ago because it's what your doctor had back then, and you've never really thought about changing. That was us until Benny's Pump Company went out of business. And I was amazed how much things had changed when we looked for a new one. I'm telling you, it is time to take advantage of what's new. If you need a sign to switch, this is it. Omnipod 5, the tubeless automated insulin delivery system, is here, and it's available through the pharmacy, which means that you can try it today, even if your tubed pump is under warranty. Fill out the quick online form, see if you're eligible for a free trial. Go to diabetes-connections.com, click on the Omnipod logo. For full safety risk information and free trial terms and conditions, visit omnipod.com/diabetesconnections.
I guess I feel like doing anything kind of outside of your comfort zone, there's always going to be a little bit of fear, but I don't think that should ever kind of stop you from doing it. I just think I've gotten a few not so nice comments and they're whatever. It's like the positive comments just outweigh those completely. And like I'll always remember those positive comments and those negative comments just go away immediately once I read a good one. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the benefit outweighs any sort of negativity
What
for
were
me.
you hoping to show on that account? Did you want to show the technology? Did you just want to show someone living well with type 1?
Yeah, definitely technology. Omnipod has like seriously changed my life. So definitely wanted to showcase that and just kind of the reality of it as well, which was like the biggest thing for me. And that like not every day is gonna be a great day living with type 1 diabetes. It's like you could wake up the same time, eat the same thing every single day, and you'd have different numbers, unfortunately, you know? So really just kind of promoting that, I guess, like the reality of it, and that was really important to me for sure.
Yeah. Zach, you guys connected over Omnipod. Obviously, Zach, you
Yeah.
use it as well. Have you
Yeah.
always used Omnipod? Talk a little
Yes.
technology.
Yeah, it was the first pump I ever went on. It was about a year after I was diagnosed, and I think might have been brand new. I'm not sure.
It was
But
definitely bigger because I remember back then it was
yeah,
a bigger size. Like you were a little kid.
it's a bigger size. It was like a super outdated like PDM like, glucometer, but yeah, it was the first and only pump I've ever been on, and the biggest draw to me was obviously like tubeless, and just being an active kid and jumping in the water, playing contact sports. I just couldn't do a tube, so my mom facilitated that, and I'm really lucky to be still on it. Like I love Omnipod, so yeah.
And Elise, you came to it a little bit more recently, right?
I was late to the game, guys. But yeah, I started a tubed insulin pump a year after my diagnosis. I was doing injections prior to that. And for me, just kind of going back to that like tough middle school age, like wearing something on my body was just the last thing I wanted to do. Or like bringing out a glucometer in the middle of class and like checking my blood sugar. It was seriously like the biggest insecurity for me, which is so weird to someone that may not have it. But I feel like I've talked to a lot of people who have kind of dealt with the same thing. You
Oh,
know, it's
yeah.
so common. I was on that for a little bit, feeling super insecure about it. Like just I would go out with my friends and like take my pump off and not even be wearing it. I was just wanted nothing to do with it. So there was definitely a resentment period, and kind of went back on injections after that. Got like another tubed pump, and then yeah, it was just kind of all over the place until I finally got Omnipod, and it's just been amazing. As a girl too, I've talked about this, but just being able to wear like a dress or a skirt and not have to like clip your pump to something, and just yeah, it's a sense of freedom that I hadn't felt until I got it. So
That's awesome. All
yeah.
right. So he says, "You're my type." And you're
hmm
thinking, maybe I am. Did you meet in person? Did it take a while to meet up?
No, no.
Oh,
So I think it was like a Tuesday that he had reached out, and we were just talking that whole week, and he had just so happened to be going to New York that weekend to spend some time with friends. And
Yeah, and I just said, "Any chance you happen to be in New York this weekend?" Thinking that maybe she goes to visit sometime, and she said, "No, but you should take a little detour." So I was like, "Oh my gosh, she actually, like, wants to meet up, like, this is real." Like, when she said that, I was just so happy, obviously, and so, yeah, after that, I was immediately looking at the trains from New York to Boston. I was supposed to be in New York till Monday, and so then, yeah, we coordinated, obviously, like, wanted to make sure that it was all good that I came because, we never talked on the phone or
yeah,
never let alone FaceTime or anything, so it was kind of just like, one of those spur of the moment, like,
yeah,
why not? You never know type of things, and, yeah, trained over to Boston. We got some dinner in the north end of Boston and spent probably, like, 20 hours together, and it was amazing, like, flew out the next day, and it was, like, so emotional. Like, felt like I was leaving someone that I've known, like, forever, so, yeah, it was pretty special, pretty unreal 20 hours or so,
yeah.
so
and when was that? How long ago was that?
That was back in July,
end of
end
July,
of July. Yeah.
yeah.
When we had gotten dinner the first night that we were together, we're walking into the restaurant. I had made a reservation, and we're both wearing our Dexcom CGMs on the same arm, on our left arm. And we're just sitting at the table looking over the menu. And our waiter comes over and he goes, "Oh my God, guys, like me too." And he was
No
also
way.
Dexcom CGM in the same spot. It was insane. So
Insane.
wild. It
That
was
is
really cool.
great. That's amazing.
Yeah,
Love it. I hope you got some good pasta in the North End.
totally.
She knows all the spots, she's Italian.
All right, Zach, I'm going to ask this of you. And again,
Yeah,
this is too personal. Tell me to shut up. I have a son with type 1.
yep,
He's 20. And I'm
yeah.
like, wow, this would be amazing. Like, are your parents, do they seem happy about, are they like, Elise, what have you got in your purse? You can always have glucose tabs, or not really fair to say for the girl, but I'm just asking.
Yeah, like, to say the least. Especially my mom, she has always been the one to check my blood sugar in the middle of the night when I was really young, twice a night, and make sure I stocked up with all my supplies growing up and taking me out of my doctor's appointments. So I can't even imagine how she feels, like the fact that, my girlfriend is type 1 diabetic and like is who she is. So yeah, they were just so excited for me. It's hard to even put to words, like, that the person I love is also dealing with the same thing that I'm dealing with.
Elise,
Yeah,
kind of the same question for you. I mean, I'm assuming
Yeah,
that it must be nice to be out with somebody, and like, if you don't have glucose tabs or whatever you use, like, hopefully he's got
exactly.
something.
Totally. It's like I remember we met in Boston, and I was able to go out and see Zach in San Diego a few weeks later, and I was talking to my dad about it, and he was like kind of doing like a little verbal checklist of everything, and he was like starting to say some diabetes supplies, like, "Do you have your Omnipods?" He's like, "Actually, I don't even have to worry about that because if you don't, he does."
yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely peace of mind for them for sure.
It's funny. I have interviewed, and I'll link it up in this episode, a couple that met at diabetes camp and are now
Mm.
married. Are either one of you involved in diabetes camps? Is that part of your story? And Zach, let me start with you.
Yeah, so I went to one camp when I was little, and I was really young. It was my first time away from home. So it was more like overridden with homesickness and as opposed to, enjoying actual camp. But my high school basketball coach, my AAU coach, he was the first type 1 diabetic NBA player. And his name is Chris Dudley. And he's a big type 1 diabetes advocate. And he has Chris Dudley Foundation. And so every summer he's got the Chris Dudley basketball camp. And I went for the first time 2 summers ago in 2023. Although don't know why I didn't go earlier, honestly. But went 2 summers ago and was just helping out coaching. It's up in Oregon. It was kind of like what we were talking about earlier, like that sense of community that I've never felt before. In, a week time span, there's maybe 85 campers or something like that.
Wow.
And there's also a couple there who used to be campers at the camp and now they're married. And it's just kids from all over the country. There's one kid from Australia and everyone's just coming together to unite over their love of basketball, So last summer was my second time. We're getting Elise to come out to the camp this coming summer. So just want to shout out Chris Dudley Basketball Camp. And he's an amazing person, amazing family. And yeah, so I hope to be going there the rest of my life and helping out. But
That's awesome.
My camp experience. But
Elise, did you go to diabetes camp?
I did. I went to Clara Barton Camp, which I believe was in Oxford, Mass. And just kind of along the lines with like first going to my JDRF, the first walk that I did is definitely just the best feeling, just being surrounded by other girls living with type 1 diabetes. It was something I'll never forget. It was an amazing experience. I think it's a really, really great idea for an adolescent living with type 1 to go to a camp like that.
All right. And just to balance it out from Zach's experience, were you okay? Homesickness?
I had the
right?
time of my life. I was crying because I didn't want to leave. Yeah, I was having a really good time.
Love it.
I was writing notes home to my mom, like, please come get me help.
I love it. It's so funny. Camp is so different for everybody, right? I always say try it once. If you don't like it, you never have to go back, but it might change your life.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Definitely.
Before I let you go, we talked about community and how that really did help both of you. I'm curious what it's like to know that you are now part of this community's larger story. I mean, look, you guys are young. I've just met you. No pressure, right? I mean, who knows what's going to happen? I don't want to be weird about anything. But when parents and young people, when anybody in the diabetes community sees a story like yours, knowing that there are people who just understand can go a long way.
Being able to just meet someone, like if you're out in public and you see someone with some sort of device or a pod or a Dexcom CGM, it's like the most special thing. And to be able to just kind of share that is so special. It's a different level of understanding. And I'd say if anyone is kind of like struggling, like the most important thing is a sense of community. So just go online. You don't have to make an account. Like you don't have to do the most, but just like searching up a hashtag like T1D and being able to connect with someone online is so beneficial in my opinion, just to see that there's other people out there with struggling just like you. And I think it's really cool to share our story about it.
It's nice to know you're going to Google like diabetes and instead of like some horrible story, yours is the story that comes up.
Yeah, I feel like
That's
there's
really cool.
there can be a lot of negatives too. So to share something, especially right now in the world, so positive, especially about diabetes, is really cool.
So you guys are together, but you're still East-West Coast. Do you know when the next time you're going to be able to hang out is?
We're thinking.
I mean, no pressure from me. I mean, I'm just the mom.
No, probably. I'm hoping to hear back about a job sometime this week. So we'll see about that. But definitely, I think like third week of March, if not sooner. Yeah.
Very cool.
It's her diversity.
Yeah. Sweet 16. Big party.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. It was wonderful to talk to you. I really appreciate you spending the time. I know you don't have a lot of time together, so thanks for spending some of it with us. And keep us posted on your job and how's everything going. And I hope we can talk again soon.
Totally. Thank you so much. It was so nice to talk to you.
Thank you, Stacey.
We really appreciate it.
I will link up the People Magazine story. It's possible that you didn't see it, of course. That'll be in the show notes and over at diabetes-connections.com. Is People Magazine still in magazine form, or is it just digital? I don't know, but you'll be able to check it out through our website. And huge thanks to those two for coming on and sharing their story. I will also link up camp information for both programs that they talked about. Diabetes camp registrations are open for most programs, and they are filling up fast. So if you are at all interested, please check out the camp near you as soon as you can. And if you're an adult with type 1 who didn't get to go to camp, maybe you didn't have the opportunity as a kid or you weren't diagnosed till you were an adult, camp is a great place as an adult. I would urge you to look into volunteering, being a staff member, or maybe checking out one of the kind of campy programs for adults like Connected in Motion. It's just so important to find your community, wherever that may be. Okay, I will see you in New Jersey in just a couple of days. Thanks to my editor, John Buchanan from Audio Editing Solutions. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Stacey Sims. I'll see you back here soon. Until then, be kind to yourself.
Diabetes Connections is a production of Stacey Sims Media. All rights reserved, all wrongs avenged.